If someone had told me that the guy the first was close with on New Year's Eve would be my new coworker in 2 weeks, I would have laughed and ordered another drink. But life's funny like that. I moved to Chicago last fall, right as the leaves turned orange and every street corner smelled like cinnamon and car exhaust. New city, new apartment, new job. Well, the job part got delayed. I was supposed to start in November, but budget stuff pushed it to January. So by the time New Year's came around, I was still jobless and feeling more than a little lost. Naturally, I did what any 27-year-old guy would do to cope with that kind of uncertainty. I got drunk. My friend Daniel dragged me to this low-key party at a loft downtown. It turned out to be anything but low-key. There were at least 100 people crammed into this industrial space with exposed brick, and some guy spinning a playlist that jumped from Bad Bunny to Taylor Swift with no warning. I wasn't really in the mood, but Daniel handed me a tequila shot and said, "New year, new decisions." I think that was his polite way of saying, hook up with someone already. Which brings me to him. I noticed him near the kitchen, leaning against the fridge like he owned it. He had that unbothered energy. Dark curls, black jeans, simple black t-shirt. Confident without trying. We locked eyes a few times across the room, but I didn't make a move. I'm not that guy. I usually wait for some kind of divine sign, like bumping into each other on the way to the bathroom. Except this time, he came to me. "Want to get out of here?" he asked after 5 minutes of small talk over vodka sodas. He didn't even ask for my name first. We took a lift to his place, barely making it through the door before we were on each other. It was hot, messy, impulsive. The kind of thing I'd normally regret in the morning. But when I woke up tangled in his sheets, his arms slung over my waist and sunlight spilling across his bare chest, I didn't feel regret, just confused, because it felt nice. Still, I left before he woke up. No note, no number, no awkward small talk. Clean break. At least that's what I thought. 2 weeks later, I walked into my new job, marketing assistant at a mid-sized agency downtown, feeling half nervous, half determined to finally get my shit together. I met with HR, signed some paperwork, got my key card. They walked me over to the open office area, where most of the team worked. A dozen sleek desks, glass partitions, people who looked way cooler than me. Then I saw him. He was sitting at the corner desk, typing something on a MacBook, completely unaware that my stomach had just dropped to the floor. Same black curls, same jawline, same guy whose moans I'd memorized 2 weeks ago. My boss, a sharp woman named Erica, gestured toward the empty desk beside him. "You'll be right next to Jamie. He's one of our brand strategists." Jamie. Of course that was his name. He looked up, and for a split second, his expression shifted. Then he smirked. The same smirk I remembered from that night. But he didn't say anything, just nodded, cool as hell. I, on the other hand, could feel myself start to sweat. What the actual fuck? Jamie waited until Erica walked away before leaning over slightly and murmuring, "Small world?" I stared at him, unsure what to say. "You work here?" He tilted his head. "You just figured that out?" Jesus. Jamie chuckled, like this was the most entertaining part of his week. "Relax. I won't tell anyone you moaned my name into a pillow." I glanced around, paranoid. "Could you not say things like that at work?" "Sorry," he said, still grinning. "Just thought it was cute. You're cute when you're flustered." I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. That was Monday. And it only got worse from there. Jamie didn't make it easy. For the first few days, he was the perfect coworker. Helpful, friendly, and just annoying enough to keep me on edge. He kept what we had a secret and didn't tell anyone about it. But when we were alone, oh, he had jokes. "Don't worry," he'd whispered during team meetings, leaning just a little too close. "I won't mention how flexible you are." Or while waiting for coffee in the break room. Still got those scratches on my back, by the way. It was maddening. Not just because he wouldn't drop it, but because my body reacted to him like it was still that damn night. Every time he brushed past me, every time he smirked like he knew exactly what he was doing, my skin prickled. And the worst part? I couldn't stop thinking about him. Not just about what happened between us, which, let's be honest, had been amazing, but about how he looked when he was focused on work, the way he tapped his pen when he was thinking, the way he bit the inside of his cheek when reading something on his screen. He had this whole laid-back confidence that made him dangerously attractive in a different way now, more layered, less mystery, more reality, which should have helped me not like him, right? But no, of course not. By Friday, I was ready to snap. We were wrapping up a campaign proposal for a food delivery brand, working late at the office while the rest of the team had gone home. It was just Jamie and me, sitting a few feet apart, music playing softly from his phone while we finalized the mock-ups. The overhead lights were off, just the glow of our monitors in the city outside. At one point, I got up to stretch. He looked over and said, "You always crack your back like that, or is that just a special New Year's Eve trick?" I gave him a look. "Seriously?" Jamie spun his chair lazily to face me. "What? I'm being nostalgic?" I crossed my arms. "You said we weren't going to talk about it." "No, you said that," he replied, smirking. I never agreed. I exhaled sharply and turned to walk away, but he added, quieter this time, "Look, if you regret it, just say so." I froze. I didn't regret it. That was the problem. I regretted not getting his number. I regretted leaving like it meant nothing. I regretted that my first real job in a new city now included daily tension that made it hard to focus. "I don't regret it," I said finally, without looking at him. There was a pause. Then I heard his chair squeak. He got up and walked around the desk, slowly, stopping just a foot away from me. I turned toward him reluctantly, and we were suddenly way too close in a dark office, with no one else around. His voice was softer now. "Then why do you act like you do?" "Because this is work," I snapped. "Because I see you every day now, and I wasn't planning for any of this. Because—" I stopped, swallowed. Jamie was looking at me with something unreadable in his eyes. Not teasing, not smug, just quiet. "Because it's easier to pretend it didn't mean anything," I said, finally, than to deal with the fact that it did. There it was, my truth, hanging in the air like a bomb I couldn't take back. Jamie's expression shifted, just barely. His lips parted like he was going to say something, but then his phone buzzed on the desk behind him. The moment broke. He stepped back, glanced at the screen, and muttered, "Shit, I have to go." I blinked. "Wait now?" "My brother's flight came in early. I promised I'd pick him up," he said, already grabbing his jacket. "Can we finish this Monday?" Yeah, sure," I said, suddenly cold all over. He hesitated for half a second, like he wanted to say more, then just nodded. "Have a good weekend, Oliver." And he was gone. I didn't see him all weekend. Monday came. Then Tuesday. Jamie was out, working remote, according to our team Slack channel. I tried not to care, tried to focus. I even went on a date with this guy the first matched with on Hinge, a sweet nurse named Alex who talked about his dog more than himself. It was fine. But I couldn't stop thinking about Jamie. Not just the closeness, not just the office flirting, but the look on his face right before he left. Like there was something more he wanted to say. Like he didn't want to walk away either. Wednesday afternoon, he finally showed up at the office again. I glanced up from my desk as he slid into his chair next to me, looking like nothing had changed. No drama. Just Jamie being Jamie. He turned toward me. Hey, I said back, pretending to focus on my screen. He paused, then leaned closer. "Got dinner plans tonight?" I looked at him, confused. "What?" "Dinner. Drinks. A real one this time. I'm asking you out, not into bed." I stared at him, heartbeat spiking. "You don't even know if I'm into that," Jamie smiled. "I think I do." I hated how right he was. I hated how much I wanted to say yes. I hated that I already was. Dinner was supposed to clear things up. I don't know why I thought that. Like, sitting across from Jamie at a dimly lit tapas place would magically sort out the mess between us. But I said yes, because the way he asked, simple, direct, a little hesitant, made it impossible to say no. We didn't go anywhere fancy. Just a small spot a few blocks from the office. Somewhere neither of us had been before. The kind of place with mismatched plates and exposed brick walls and servers who treated wine like religion. Jamie showed up in his usual uniform, dark jeans, a Henley, jacket slung over one shoulder. Casual but intentional. Meanwhile, I'd changed twice before settling on a button-up I never wore. I was already seated when he arrived, and when he sat down, he gave me this small, unreadable smile that knocked the breath out of me more than it should have. "Wasn't sure you'd actually show," he said, picking up the menu. "You asked." I said yes. Still, he shrugged. "Part of me thought you'd change your mind." I didn't respond right away. The air between us was charged, but quieter than it was at the office. Less playful, more vulnerable. We ordered. Shared some flatbread, grilled octopus, wine we pretended to understand. For the first half hour, we kept things light. Office gossip, favorite movies, random facts. I learned he has a twin sister who lives in Portland, that he used to play soccer until he blew out his knee, and that he's terrified of horses. Too big, too confident. You can't trust something with eyes on the sides of its head. I laughed more than I expected to, felt more at ease than I wanted to admit. Eventually, though, the conversation shifted. It had to. So I said, somewhere between the second and third glass of wine, "Why'd you ask me out?" Jamie wiped his mouth with his napkin, leaned back. "Honestly? Because I couldn't stop thinking about you." I looked at him, surprised by the bluntness. "After New Year's," he went on, "I thought it was a one-time thing, and I was fine with that. I mean, it was hot, don't get me wrong, but I didn't expect anything more. Then you showed up at work and sat next to me and—" He trailed off, searching for the right words. "And?" I prompted. "And you were different," he said quietly. "You weren't just some guy from a party. You were funny. Smart. Annoyingly good at your job." Annoyingly. I raised an eyebrow. He smirked. He smirked. In a good way. There was a pause. A long one. "You kept pretending nothing happened," he said, "but every time you smiled at me in a meeting or leaned over my desk or got all flustered because I made some stupid joke, I couldn't focus. I kept wondering what it meant, if you felt it too." I looked down at my hands. "I did," I said. Jamie didn't say anything. He just reached across the table and brushed his fingers against mine. Not holding, just touching. It was the smallest thing, but it made something shift in my chest. "I don't know what this is," I admitted. "I just got here. This job is still new. My life is still a mess." He nodded. "Mine too. I don't want drama." "Neither do I." Another pause. The kind that would have felt awkward with anyone else. "I just want to get to know you," he said. "Outside of the office. Outside of that night." I looked at him for a long time. Then I nodded. "Okay." We didn't sleep together that night. That surprised me. I kind of expected that we would. It would have been the easy thing. We said goodnight outside the restaurant, standing under a flickering street lamp. He kissed my cheek, light, brief, like he didn't want to push it. And that made me want him more. The next few weeks were a strange kind of blur. At work, we kept things professional, mostly. Jamie still found ways to fluster me, sneaking glances across the conference room, sending me stupid inside jokes in Slack, accidentally brushing my arm when we passed in the hall. But he never crossed the line, not really. Outside of work, we were something. We grabbed dinner, went to a trivia night where we lost miserably but ended up laughing so hard I couldn't breathe. One night, we stayed in and watched Ocean's 11 and fell asleep on opposite ends of his couch until I woke up with my legs draped over his and his hand resting on my ankle like it belonged there. But we hadn't kissed again. Not really. There was this invisible thread pulling us closer, tighter, but we hadn't let it snap. Until one Friday night. We were at my apartment this time. Pizza, beers, low music in the background. Jamie had just told some story about getting catfished in college, and I was laughing so hard I nearly choked on a sip of beer. When I caught my breath, I saw him looking at me. Not smiling, not teasing, just looking. "What?" I asked, still smiling. He didn't answer, just leaned in. I didn't stop him. His lips met mine slowly. No heat, no rush. Just a kiss that felt like an answer to every question we hadn't asked out loud. and then it deepened. I let my fingers curl into his shirt. He moved closer. My back hit the couch. This time, when we touched, it wasn't messy or drunken or hurried. It was slow, careful. Like we both wanted to prove that this time, it wasn't about getting off. It was about something real, something we weren't ready to name yet. The thing about sleeping with someone you already know is that it hits different when it's the second time. Especially when the first time was a blur of alcohol and adrenaline and two strangers looking for something warm on a cold night. This time, it was slower. We didn't rush. We didn't need to. Jamie kissed me like he had time, like he wanted to remember it all. His hands explored with intent, not hunger. My shirt came off somewhere between the living room and the bedroom, his mouth following the curve of my shoulder like he knew where to go. And when we finally ended up tangled in my sheets, the pace didn't change. It was deliberate, intimate, quiet. Afterward, we didn't speak for a while. He was on his back, staring at the ceiling, and I was beside him, one arm over my eyes, trying not to let my brain ruin it by overthinking every single second. Eventually, he turned toward me. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah. You?" Jamie reached out, traced a line along my arm with his finger. "More than okay." I opened my eyes, met his gaze in the dark. "I don't know what this is," I said. "I mean, are we?" "You don't have to define it," he cut in, gently. "Not tonight." I let out a breath. "Okay." He leaned in and kissed me again. Slower this time. Sleepier. Like punctuation at the end of a sentence. The following Monday, everything felt different. Nothing had changed on the surface. We still sat side by side in the office. Still made sarcastic comments during meetings. Still passed each other folders like we weren't thinking about each other half naked in bed. But under it, everything had shifted. And somehow, that was worse. Now I wasn't just dealing with casual attraction. I was dealing with memories. With emotional weight. With the fact that I'd let someone pass my defenses and that someone worked 5 feet away from me. Jamie, for his part, was confusing. Some moments, he'd be affectionate in little ways. An extra long glance, a hand brushing against mine when we reached for the same pen, a private joke that made me blush. Other moments, he was distant, focused, locked into his screen like the weekend hadn't happened at all. It made me second-guess everything. Then came the happy hour. Our company hit a major project milestone, and management decided to take us all out for drinks. Everyone was buzzing from the win, the bar was loud, and by the third round of cocktails, people were leaning into each other a little more than usual. I was wedged between our coworker Tasha and a guy from accounting named Darren, barely following the conversation. I kept glancing toward the end of the table, where Jamie was laughing with 2 junior creatives. He looked relaxed, like he belonged there. I didn't. Tasha nudged me. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said quickly. "Just tired." She tilted her head. "You've been kind of quiet lately. Thought you and Jamie were tight?" My heart stuttered. "What?" She shrugged, sipping her drink. "You guys used to joke around all the time. Now you barely talk at work." I forced a laugh. "We still talk." She said, unconvinced. Then she leaned in a little, voice dropping to a mock conspiratorial whisper. "Don't worry. I won't ask if you've been secretly hooking up or anything." I nearly choked on my beer. She laughed. "I'm kidding. Relax. God." I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. That night, Jamie and I left at the same time, but separately. I didn't wait for him. Didn't linger to walk out together. I needed space. Clarity. Something. But as I stood on the platform waiting for my train, my phone buzzed. "Jamie, you okay?" I stared at the message for a long time. Me. "Not really." No response. Then a few seconds later, he called. I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. But I answered. "Hey," I said. "Want me to come over?" he asked, no hesitation. I hesitated. "I don't know." He was quiet for a moment. You're spiraling, he said, not unkindly. Tell me what's going on. I rubbed my forehead. Us, whatever we're doing. You're worried someone at work will find out? I'm worried I'm getting in over my head. Jamie didn't speak right away. Then, softly, You're not the only one. My chest tightened. I like you, Oliver, he said. But I don't want to rush you. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And if you want to hit pause or take space or pretend this didn't happen... I don't, I cut in, a beat. I don't want to pretend, I said again. Jamie exhaled. I could hear the relief in it. Okay, he said. Then let's not pretend. He came over that night. We didn't sleep together. We ordered Thai food and watched a terrible Netflix thriller. He fell asleep with his head on my chest, one arm draped over me like he was trying to make sure I didn't leave. And that was the moment I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. This wasn't a fling. It wasn't a mistake. It was the start of something real. And real is terrifying. Because real can go wrong. But I wasn't ready to let it go. Not this time. For a while, things were good. Weird, surreal, high-wire good. Jamie and I figured out an unspoken rhythm. At work, we stayed chill, friendly, but professional. Outside of work, we were still figuring out what to call whatever we were building. We weren't labeling anything, but we were seeing each other at least twice a week. Sometimes more. It was the kind of closeness that sneaks up on you. Like, one night he left a toothbrush at my place without asking, and I didn't even think about it until 2 days later when I saw it in the cup next to mine. Or the way he started remembering how I took my coffee and brought one in without being asked. Little things. The kind that make you start imagining bigger things. But I tried to stay grounded. I told myself, this is still new. Don't jump ahead, don't assume, and definitely don't fall. Still, I was falling. Then came the night we ran into his ex. It was a Thursday. Random dinner plans after a rough day. I'd been buried under revisions, and Jamie had just dealt with a disastrous client meeting. We were both fried, so we walked to this cozy little bar he liked on the west side. Brick walls, low lighting, good fries. We were halfway through our burgers when a voice behind us said, well, you do exist outside of Slack. Jamie looked up, and his expression shifted immediately. It wasn't shock. It was something else. Wariness. Hey, he said, setting down his drink. I turned and saw the guy. Tall, sharp suit. That smug kind of smile that looks practiced. Drew, this is Oliver, Jamie said, gesturing to me. Drew's eyes flicked to me, then back to Jamie. Ah, Oliver, heard your name. I gave a polite nod. Nice to meet you. Likewise. Drew let the moment hang a little too long before saying, didn't mean to interrupt, just small world. Jamie forced a smile. Yeah. Drew lingered for another beat, then finally walked off. I didn't say anything for a while. Neither did Jamie. He just stared at his fries like they'd suddenly become very interesting. Finally, I asked, want to talk about that? He exhaled. That was Drew. We dated for like a year. Broke up last spring. Still talk? No, he said immediately. Then, not really. Occasionally. He works with one of our old clients. We run into each other sometimes. I nodded, trying not to overanalyze. Jamie saw right through it. You're thinking things. I'm not. You are. I picked up my drink, bought myself a few seconds. It's not jealousy, I said finally. It's just... You went weird as soon as you saw him. Jamie leaned back in the booth. He's just a part of my past I don't like mixing with my present. I didn't press him, but something about the way he said it, like he was hiding the full truth, stuck with me. The next week felt off. Jamie wasn't distant exactly, but he was quieter, more in his own head. He'd still send me the occasional flirty message at work, still text me late at night. But something had shifted. One night, I asked him if he wanted to come over. He said he was tired, said he had a headache, said he'd call me tomorrow. He didn't. And for the first time since this thing started, I felt that old creeping feeling in my gut. The one that tells you something's changed before you even have the facts. At work, I caught him zoning out more than once. During one team meeting, he barely spoke. And when I passed by his desk afterward, he was scrolling through photos on his phone, one of which looked a hell of a lot like Drew. I didn't say anything. Not then. But I went home that night feeling more alone than I had in months. We finally talked the following weekend. I didn't plan for it to happen the way it did. We were supposed to meet for coffee Saturday afternoon. I waited. He was 20 minutes late, then 30. Finally, I texted him. Me. Everything okay? He replied 10 minutes later. Jamie. Sorry. Shit day. Can we rain check? I stared at the message for a long time. Then I called him. He picked up on the second ring. Hey, he said. You're pulling away, I said. No small talk, no soft let-in. I was tired of pretending not to notice. There was a pause. A long one. I know, he said eventually. Why? More silence. Then, finally, he said, because this started out as something casual. And now it's not. And that scares the hell out of me. I sat down, heart thudding. So your solution is to ghost me slowly? No, he said quickly. When I saw Drew, I realized I hadn't fully let that chapter close. And I didn't want to drag you into any unfinished mess. You don't deserve that. And you didn't think I could handle it? I asked. You didn't think maybe I'd want to be included in the conversation instead of slowly edged out? He sighed. You're right. I'm sorry. I was quiet for a while. Then I said, do you want to keep doing this? I do, he said immediately. But not if it's going to hurt you. It's already starting to. Another pause. Then let me come over. Let's talk, for real this time. An hour later, we were sitting on my couch again, both of us tired, both of us guarded. But this time, we didn't pretend things were fine. We didn't hide behind jokes or chillin' or small talk. We talked. He told me about how his last relationship ended. Messy, drawn out, full of half-promises and late-night fights. How it left him wary of starting anything new. How Drew had made him question his gut instincts for a long time. And I told him that I wasn't looking for perfection. That I didn't need a neat story or easy answers, just honesty and effort and him. By the end of it, we were sitting close again, our knees touching. Jamie looked at me and said, I'm in, if you are. I nodded. I'm in. Something changed after that night. Not just in the way Jamie and I talked, but in how we showed up for each other, for this thing we were building. He didn't flake anymore. He didn't leave me wondering. If he couldn't see me, he'd tell me why. If something felt off, he said it out loud instead of letting it fester under the surface. And I met him halfway. We weren't perfect, not even close. But we were finally in sync about what we were doing. Whatever this was, it was real. At work, nothing changed outwardly. We kept it under wraps, careful not to give anyone a reason to raise eyebrows. But the tension between us had mellowed into something more steady, less distracting, more supportive. When I was struggling with a campaign, Jamie would sneak over and drop notes that actually helped. When he was neck-deep in edits, I'd bring him a coffee without saying a word. No one commented, at least not out loud. Though Tasha did give me a weird look one day when she caught me staring at Jamie just a little too long during a brainstorm session. But that was fine, I could live with that. Then came the client retreat. Our company had this yearly off-site event, basically a 3-day marketing summit held at a fancy lodge 2 hours outside the city. I had heard about it during onboarding, but hadn't given it much thought. Until Erica called me and Jamie into her office 2 weeks before and said, you two are leading one of the breakout sessions this year. Congratulations. Great. Nothing like being professionally tethered to your not-quite-boyfriend in front of half your coworkers for 72 hours. The retreat itself was nicer than I expected. Woodsy, upscale, designed to make stressed-out creatives forget their deadlines for a weekend. Big windows, cozy fireplaces, ridiculous charcuterie boards every 15 feet. We arrived late Friday afternoon and spent most of the evening socializing, pretending to enjoy small talk with people we barely knew outside of Slack. By 9 p.m., Jamie and I found ourselves sitting outside near a fire pit, sipping cheap red wine out of plastic cups. "You good?" he asked, nudging me gently with his knee. "Yeah, just peopled out." He nodded. "Same." I glanced around. A few co-workers were still lingering by the fire, but most had drifted inside. It was cold enough to see our breath. Jamie leaned in closer, speaking low. We're technically off the clock." I raised an eyebrow. "Meaning?" "Meaning we could sneak away for a bit." "There's a hot tub behind the rec center," I laughed. "Is that your version of romantic?" He grinned. "It's warm, it's private, and I haven't kissed you in, 8 hours. I'm suffering. Tragic. You could fix it." I pretended to think about it. "Okay, 10 minutes. But if there's some weird company bonding circle happening in the hot tub, I'm leaving." "No weird circles," Jamie promised, standing up. "Just you and me." The hot tub was empty. Tucked behind the main lodge, steam curling into the night air. We slipped in slowly, both sighing at the heat. It was the first time all day I'd felt like I could actually breathe. Jamie slid closer. He said, voice quieter now, "I didn't expect any of this." "Any of what?" "You. Us. The job, even. I was supposed to move to Austin last year." I turned to look at him. "Why didn't you?" "My dad got sick. Needed help at home. Then that turned into a full year of limbo. Then this job kind of fell in my lap. I never really unpacked any of it until you." I swallowed. "What do you mean?" Jamie's hand found mine under the water, warm, grounding. "I didn't realize how much I'd been floating until I met you. And then everything got very real, very fast. I didn't know what to say to that. So I kissed him. It wasn't even about the setting or the warmth. It was about the way he looked at me in that moment, like I was the one thing in his life that actually made sense." The kiss turned slow, then hungrier. His hand slid up my back, my fingers tangled in his wet curls. The steam rose thick around us, blurring everything else out. But before things could go further, a voice cut through the night. "Oh, shit, sorry. Didn't realize this was occupied." We broke apart instantly. One of the junior analysts, Max, I think, stood at the corner of the patio, wide-eyed and backing away. "No worries," Jamie called out, trying to sound casual. Max nodded too fast. "Yeah, cool, sorry, enjoy." He disappeared before either of us could say another word. I sank lower into the water. "Well, that's going to circulate by morning." Jamie sighed. "Guess the secret's out." "You okay with that?" He looked at me. "Are you?" I thought about it. Really thought. Then I nodded. "Yeah, I am." Sure enough, by breakfast the next day, something had shifted. Nothing was said out loud, but people looked at us differently. A few curious glances, some raised eyebrows. Tisha gave me a smug little smile from across the buffet table. Jamie squeezed my hand under the table when no one was looking. Later that night, back in our shared room, we figured we'd deal with the gossip since HR technically hadn't forbidden it. I asked him, "Do you think this is going to be a problem?" "You mean the job?" I nodded. He thought for a moment. "Maybe, maybe not. But I've done the casual thing, the secret thing, the pretend it's nothing thing, and none of it ever made me feel the way I do with you." I let that sit for a second. Then I leaned against him, rested my head on his shoulder. "Okay," I whispered. "Then let's stop pretending." Returning from the retreat felt like walking back into reality after a long weekend of pretending the world didn't exist. We got back to the office Monday morning, tired, slightly sunburned, and a little too aware that whatever spell we'd been under in the woods was now gone. It didn't help that Max, the guy who caught us in the hot tub, had clearly told someone. Because by lunchtime, I'd heard our names mentioned twice in conversations I wasn't supposed to hear. Once by the elevator. "Wait, those two?" And once near the kitchen. I knew something was going on. Did you see the way Jamie looked at him during the design pitch last month? Nothing outright hostile. Just the slow burn of office gossip. The knowing looks. The sudden drop in conversation when one of us walked into a room. I tried to brush it off. So did Jamie. We weren't doing anything wrong. We weren't breaking rules. HR didn't technically have a policy against coworkers dating. And we'd been discreet, at least until the hot tub incident. Still, something had shifted. People were acting weird. A week later, we were pulled into Erica's office. She was calm, composed, but her message was clear. You're both valued here, and I want to be very upfront. Some people are talking. I'm not here to police anyone's personal life, but if this becomes a distraction, or if anyone files a complaint, I'll have to intervene. Jamie nodded. Understood. I just sat there, feeling my stomach twist. Afterward, we went back to our desks. Jamie reached for my hand under the table, just briefly, just for reassurance. But I pulled away. I didn't mean to. It was instinct. He didn't say anything about it then. But that night, he didn't come over. He didn't text. I didn't either. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't anything loud. It was just quiet. Too quiet. That Friday, I grabbed drinks with Daniel, my old friend, the one who dragged me to that New Year's party in the first place. I hadn't seen him in over a month. Work had swallowed me up. Jamie had swallowed me up. You look like you haven't slept in a week, Daniel said, sliding a gin and tonic across the table toward me. I've been sleeping, I muttered. Yeah, but have you been resting? I looked at him. What does that even mean? He raised an eyebrow. It means you look like a guy who got what he wanted and now doesn't know what to do with it. I sighed. It's complicated. Daniel took a sip of his drink, then leaned in. You like this guy, yeah? I nodded. He treat you well? Yeah, he does. So what's the problem? I hesitated. It's the way everything changed. The way people look at us now. The pressure of being seen. It's like we were fine when it was just ours. But now that it's out in the open, it's messy? Daniel offered. Exactly. He leaned back in his chair. You're scared, that's fair. But let me ask you something. What? If you could go back to that night, New Year's, would you still go home with him? I looked down at my glass. Then back at him. Yes, I said. Then there's your answer, Daniel said, raising his glass. Everything else? Background noise. That night, I texted Jamie. Me. Are you home? No response for 10 minutes. Then, Jamie. Yeah. Me. Can I come over? He replied almost instantly this time. Jamie, of course. When I got there, he opened the door looking tired and guarded, like he was bracing for impact. Before he could say anything, I stepped in and wrapped my arms around him. Tight. He held me like he'd been waiting for it. I'm sorry I pulled away, I said, voice muffled against his shoulder. I got scared. I know, he said quietly. Me too. We sat on the couch, legs tangled. He didn't press. He didn't ask for explanations I wasn't ready to give. He just held space for me. After a while, I said, I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose you. You're not, he said. But if this gets worse, if work starts treating us different, or if Erica... He shook his head. We'll handle it. Together. I looked at him. Promise? I asked. He nodded. Promise. The following Monday, we went into the office like usual. But this time, when we passed each other in the hallway, I didn't avoid his eyes. When we had lunch, we sat next to each other in the break room instead of pretending we were too busy. We didn't make a show of it, but we stopped hiding. And over time, the whispers faded. Or maybe we just stopped hearing them. Because the truth is, when something's real, when it's strong enough, you stop needing people to understand it. You just live it. Spring came slowly. The city thawed one cracked sidewalk at a time, and with it, so did the tension. What started as a secret, an accident, really, had settled into something stable. Jamie and I weren't just a fling anymore. We weren't a hookup, or a mistake, or a workplace complication. We were together. He started keeping a second hoodie at my apartment. I kept his favorite cereal in my kitchen, even though I never touched it. Sunday mornings became a ritual. Coffee runs, long walks, conversations that went nowhere on purpose. And maybe that's what made it feel real, the way we stopped needing the highs and just started being. Of course, not everything was perfect. Some days were harder than others. There were still moments when I'd catch someone at work giving us a look, when Jamie would walk past my desk, and I'd feel that old self-conscious itch. But those moments came less often now. People had moved on, or gotten used to us. We weren't the hot gossip anymore, just two guys who worked together and went home together, and sometimes bickered about which couch blanket was better. Erica eventually checked in again, formally this time. HR protocol. We met with her in a glass-walled conference room, signed a disclosure that confirmed we weren't each other's managers, agreed to notify them if anything changed. Afterward, she smiled and said, "Just don't break up in the middle of a campaign launch, okay?" Jamie gave her a mock salute. "No promises." I rolled my eyes. "We'll try," she laughed. "Good. Now get out of my office and go be disgustingly well-adjusted somewhere else." And that was that. The 1-year anniversary of the night we met snuck up on me. New Year's Eve, again. We didn't have plans. Neither of us wanted a party this time. We stayed in. Jamie made pasta from scratch, well, from a box, but he tried. And I picked a movie I knew we wouldn't finish. Just before midnight, he pulled me onto the balcony with 2 mugs of warm cider. It was cold, the sky was clear, and for a second, everything felt like it had gone quiet. Jamie leaned against the railing. "1 year ago, we were in a stairwell," I laughed. "You had tequila breath. You kissed me first." "Lies. You totally did." I bumped his shoulder. "We were so stupid." He looked at me. "Yeah, we were." Then, softer, "I'm glad we were." We stood there in the cold, shoulders touching, watching tiny bursts of light bloom over rooftops in the distance. And when midnight hit, he kissed me. Slow, certain, familiar, like we'd been practicing it all year. I used to think love had to be loud, explosive, dramatic, impossible to ignore. But maybe it's quieter than that. Maybe it's a toothbrush beside yours. A text that says, "Don't forget your umbrella." A hand that always finds yours under the table, even when you're not sure it should. Maybe it's the guy who used to be a mistake and now feels like home.